All right, so we're now live. Thank you for everybody who is tuning in to watch. So today I have a few guys on the chat today because I was hoping to talk about ELAP. There has been some new updates and I saw that ELAP has finally just opened back up. It closed down right when all of the big losses were happening. They shut all of the funding down, so it looks like it's now back open, and I was hoping to kind of get some more information out about it. But before we dive into that, do you guys want to introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Logan Clancey. I'm an almond broker, and then I also do crop insurance, and I'm an ELAP consultant.
So I'm Doug Desoto. I'm a beekeeper. I also am in partnership with Logan on the GroundShaker Consulting part that we consult on ELAP programs and disaster relief programs.
Charles Linder. I run about 5,000 hives. We do a lot of pollination work, and I get involved in a few things in the industry.
Quite a few. So let's just go ahead and get straight into it. So ELAP, it's an emergency assistance program for beekeepers. Can you talk about what all it involves and what it is?
Certainly. So one thing we want to clarify is that the government has several emergency or disaster relief programs. Some are based on weather, such as excessive winds, flood, fire, earthquake, so forth and so on. Those are all different programs, and they are ELAP disaster programs. The ELAP program that we're specifically talking about today are ELAP losses generated to colony collapse disorder, which is a separate program, and those losses need to be counted separately from any losses that may be from any other disaster, such as fire, wind, so forth and so on. So it is a separate program. It's isolated to the losses to colony collapse disorder.
Okay.
We're a consulting company that helps many beekeepers. It can be a complicated process to get to the FSA office, the Farm Service Agency. Lots of forms, lots of paperwork. And as our government is set up, it's notorious for not making things easy. And if it's not done just right, it's easy to either decline it or put it on the back burner. So that's why it's so important to make sure that we get all this documentation not only done correctly, but there's also a window of time that the government allows you to claim these losses. That time period may change from one year to the other. 2 years ago, all losses had to be claimed or recognized within 15 days of recognizing the symptoms of colony collapse disorder. In 2024, that was changed because it was kind of a difficult thing to do. It was changed to 30 days of recognizing the symptoms of colony collapse disorder that you had to report these losses. In 2024, the government has set forth the normal mortality for the beekeepers loss of hives at 24.2% and the market value of the bees at $129. I met with an FSA office yesterday. Typically, each year, those adjustments are not released till sometime in late April. They have not been released for 2025, so we are not certain what this more normal mortality rate might be, nor what the market value of the bees will be. We're hopeful, and we have some input and understand that the government is saying that they are hopeful the mortality rate significantly goes south, and that's the exact terminology that I was told, and that the market value of the bees goes north. I was not given any specifics, and we will just have to see when this is all released. Hopefully, sometime late April, we see these numbers.
Let's back up here a second, Doug. You mentioned the colony loss. In our FSA program here, this covers both colony loss from CCD or natural disasters, floods, that kind of thing. They're separate lines in our filing, but they are under the same ELAP program for us. Is that not true everywhere?
They are all part of emergency disaster relief, but they have to be recorded separately.
Right.
The payouts are different. With colony collapse disorder, the amount of money that is generated through loss of colonies is kind of set up where it pays you for the bees themselves, the actual honeybees. Whereas if you have, say, a fire claim, you would also be able to claim not just the bees, but also the loss of some equipment in those claims. It has to be justified. We really like to see a lot of photographs in such cases like that. I have personally never done a fire claim. I don't think it would be much different. I have done some flooding claims for some beekeepers. I actually did one for myself years ago. And I've also done some excessive wind claims. Each one is different and has to be recorded. And remember, you can have losses that are not losses to colony collapse. So the recording of those is very specific and very different. You record the losses to colony collapse within the 30-day of recognition, whereas you may go years without a flood claim or a fire claim. So they're not a regular ongoing thing, and they're independent. They're part of the emergency relief disaster program, but they are to be filed separately from losses to the colony collapse disorder claim.
Let's back up a little bit and talk about eligibility. So that's a lot of the people listening to this are small scale and sideliners, and the question of eligibility comes up. My understanding of this is you basically have to be known as a farm entity and be filed with the FSA office, at least for the first time for your initial claim. But as far as I know, there isn't any particular limitation on the size of your operation, at least on the lower end.
No, we have some people that I deal with that have as little as 50 hives. I know personally of a guy that has 12 or 14 hives. He participates in the ELAP program. If you are located in a state that requires an apiary registration, then that would be one thing that you have to even if you're a small or not a really big beekeeper, you would still have to have that apiary registration. You have to be registered with the state. Now, not all states require the same exact thing, and that's kind of leaves a little gray area. So some states don't require registration at all. Some states require a type of license. Some states require an affidavit that allows the state inspectors to go in and inspect the bees periodically. Most states recommend that. We comply with all that. There's some variances, so you have to check from one state to the other the exact eligibility. Typically, you have to have a farm plan in place. You have to have a best management practice in place. With GroundShaker Consulting, we assist and provide in all of those means and methods. But
sorry, Doug, didn't mean to interrupt there. The reality of this, even though it's a federal program, it's an emergency livestock assistance program that covers hay and forage loss. It covers excessive feed. It covers flood. In our case, for bees, we normally talk about CCD. But if you have a severe drought in your area and you manage to get rainfall insurance, you're also eligible for some additional feed costs. Is that correct?
That is correct. Once again, it's a completely separate claim that you would file from the colony collapse disorder. They're all emergency relief programs. With the feed supplement program, they're going to go back to recordings of exactly what that particular area you're in has justified as a legitimate drought area. It has to be so many days of so much drought. And even with the drought, there's levels of drought that they adjust the payment on that program. So it can be a drought for so many days, and they call it the severity of the drought. And as it increases and stays dry for a longer period of time with no rainfall, then that revenue can rise up because of the more severity. And it's actually, there's a map that's put out for sure in Louisiana that shows each region and where the severity of the drought is at.
Let's keep in mind, not everybody has access to you guys, and go through the basic program for somebody who's just getting interested in this. They have to sign up with their local FSA office prior to a loss or at the first notice of loss, those kind of details. If we can kind of give some people some insight on that, I think that would be a good thing.
So ideally, when you want to participate in the program, you would need to go to your FSA office. You would have to sign up initially. Each one has different requirements. For the most part, you're going to need a form number. You're going to need a form plan. You're going to need a best management practices in many cases, not all. But then you're going to need a certified number of how many colonies you are beginning with. Typically, all of our clients, we try to do this before January the 2nd. If you're participating in ELAP, you have to qualify and certify this number prior to January the 2nd. If you're not previously in ELAP and you're just starting up, you would go to your office prior to claiming any losses, and you would say, here's my form number, which is typically an address of where you're centrally located, your shop, your extracting shop, whatever it might be. And then you're going to provide them with a certified number. This needs to be a real number. It's not a guessing game. So we all talk, like I heard Charles say a little earlier, I run about 5,000 hives. We're about the same size as that. But when you certify this number at FSA, that number is going to be, and I'll use an example, it's going to be 4,736 hives, not about 5,000. And then from there, you're going to start recording the movement of all colonies, different things that's required. If it's a true loss to CCD, our philosophy with GroundShaker Consulting is that we're trying to encourage the beekeeper not to just have a bunch of dead outs and losses. Our program enables the beekeeper to rebuild his colonies. And we feel that this is very, very important, especially with the huge losses this year, because if we just simply pick everything up as dead outs and do not try to rebuild what we have, then what we're going to find is next year that number is going to be even worse than it was this year. And that's not our goal. So our means and methods helps the beekeeper understand how he can work the ELAP program just as the government lays out for them to do so, but yet keep their colony population up.
Well, let me go over something here, Doug, and you correct me or Logan if I'm wrong here, but the filing date for 2024 is basically it's a calendar year program, and it ended in December 31st of 2024. So those losses that we picked up and found in January and February here would actually go on the 2025 recording. So it's not too late to get ELAP for the bees you just found out you lost. It is way too late to get ELAP for the bees you lost last year, though. Is that correct?
That's correct. The way the handbook reads is that you must report all losses of the previous year within 30 days of recognition. So, for example, you would literally have till the end of January to record any losses that were found at the very end or the last day of December. Now, that's just really pushing the envelope.
Now, my understanding, Doug, is that there's some leniency with your first time filing. If you've never been a program before, you can go in and they will grant you some clemency on that and get you in the system. They will give you a farm number at that point and start the process. So that
if you've never been in, that is correct. But once again, if you want to go back and start filing losses that you had in January, you should have had previously a certified number, because those losses need to come off of what you started with. So at whatever point you're going to go in, you should have a number of colonies you have at that point and work down from there and or rebuild up from there, because all splits are recorded too. It's not just a downward motion. It's both directions.
So typically, like for our filing, we have a December number of what we sent in to almonds, and then of course you lose some in the almonds. When you come out, you have a slightly different number.
That's correct.
On next year's. So now our numbers start to go up, and what we have to do is we file every month how many queens we bought, how many splits we made, We also put the dates we medicated on them, as well as the location of the bees. And that's something that I do anyway. And I think most good beekeepers do some sort of version of that on paper anyway. We happen to keep ours in Excel because of the number of hives we've got. And then every 30 days, you would file that with your county office, correct?
Correct. Yes, 30 days. We encourage all beekeepers to file as close to that 30-day period as possible, because the government sets those guidelines out. So it's our opinion that if you're going to report your losses within 30 days of recognition of the losses, then it would only make sense that you're going to try and get these reports in every 30 days.
Mm-hmm. I know with my office, they also require you to provide documentation of like purchasing mite treatments and feed and stuff like that. Is that something you also have to keep up on?
Yeah, so the goal there is the government wants to do a couple of things. Number one, they wanted to confirm that you are a viable beekeeper. And the second thing they're wanting to know is that you're taking measures to keep your bees alive. So we encourage all beekeepers.
Uh-oh.
Medication.
Now Logan's going to have to speak.
Yeah, sure. Now it's on me. Now, Doug was saying, you want to definitely keep good records of all your treatments, feed, even probiotics. It's kind of one of those things. There's never too much information, right? You want to give them the more the better kind of thing. It leaves a lot less gray area and a lot less red flags of any sort.
Absolutely.
So that kind of oh, go ahead.
It's viability and confirmation that you are taking all possible measures to avoid losing colonies.
And that goes kind of hand in hand with the best beekeeping practices. I mean, it shows that you're out there, you're putting your full effort in, you're not cutting any corners, and it kind of validates, at least in my opinion, it validates the CCD and doesn't leave room for like, well, if you would have been treating for beetles or if you were treating for mites, this wouldn't have happened. It just really eliminates the gray area.
It kind of gets rid of the rumors too that was kind of going through the beekeeping industry that I guess you could say like ELAP being abused, but it's kind of hard to do that if you have to provide proof that, hey, you're still being a good beekeeper, you're still keeping up on things.
Yeah, there's a problem in the ELAP program at the moment that will never be addressed, and that is that it's run by your county FSA. And in certain parts of the country, that's not a big deal. If you're in California, Southern Florida, Central Georgia, those FSA agents are very familiar with dealing with beekeepers. But if you live out in the middle of nowhere like I do, first time I went in and talked to them, they go, "We have a beekeeper in the state?" I didn't even know they existed, So the FSA agents, some of them are at a complete loss at where they should be at. And that's where, Doug and Logan can really shine, is when you have somebody that doesn't know what they're doing or talking about. And it's real confusing when you as a beekeeper have never experienced this. You don't know how the system's supposed to work, and you go in to talk to somebody who has no clue how it's supposed to work either, and how it's supposed to be applied to you. It can take months of phone calls and discussions. And then on top of that, some FS agents are more than willing to work with you and listen and understand, and some of them are not as easy to get along with. Some of them seem like they don't, a more adversarial position. How's that for politically correct?
That is correct. We find, and I use this word very respectfully, that you were constantly trying to educate the beekeeper on a true justifiable loss to CCD. We don't want to promote. We talk about some beekeepers abusing the program. I guess this is true with almost anything in this world that we do. There's going to be somebody out there that sees the need to abuse or misuse a good tool. And this is a good tool. This is not a welfare program. This is not something that they're paying beekeepers to kill their bees. A lot of misconceptions out there. Logan and I have met with several people who go all the way to the point of lobbying in Washington for our benefit. And we've made sure that what we're doing, and there's enough revenue generated doing this correctly, the way the government has set out, where the beekeeper doesn't need to do anything fraudulent, but yet some, I guess, somewhere along the line are going to find the means to do that. So we do not promote that in any way. So we find, and I use the word education, that we can educate the beekeeper to understand exactly what is an eligible loss to colony collapse. And by the same token, we find ourselves spending a tremendous amount of time educating some of the people in the county FSA offices. Now, Charles is 100% right. Some are more willing to learn, and there are some that are really eager to try and figure out exactly how the program works, and there's others that would rather just not fool with it. And so there's a wide variety. But remember this, on a county level, those people have to answer to somebody too. It is not their decision whether they do or do not use this program. This is a federal program that is designed to assist, in this particular case, the beekeeper. It's designed to help many other farmers in different ways too, as Charles brought out, grazing livestock, farm-raised fish. And there's other programs for row crop farmers and so forth and so on. But we just want to make sure that we don't give the beekeeper a bad name. We want to make sure we comply with all the government wants us to do. We believe that documentation is extremely important, and trying to work closely with the FSA offices has seemed to be very beneficial to the program.
Carol asked there if this department was still up and running. This is actually, the ELAP program is approved under the Farm Bill, and then it's financed by a group called the Commodity Credit Corporation. It is a little bit of discretionary funding, and that is part of the problem of why it got stopped for a few days. But realistically, it is not a non-essential program. It is part of the Farm Bill in general.
That's correct.
Now,
another question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Emma.
Another question I saw in the comments too. So this would be, say like a sideliner is treatment free. Is this something they can still qualify for? How would they do that if they're not buying treatments? Treatments
as in mite treatments?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be very difficult because one of the criteria for colony collapse disorder is when you look through the symptoms, it specifically states that you must be keeping mites within the tolerable levels of whatever that might mean. I don't know. But if you're not treating at all, most beekeepers will go tell you, you're going to probably have you a mite problem. And so if the government has any loopholes to tell you that your losses could be from mites versus CCD, then it would probably, not saying you couldn't appeal it, not saying you couldn't go any further, but it sure doesn't give you a stronger stance as if you're treating for mites, which we all know can get out of hand quickly if not treated.
Mm-hmm. But also treatments, could be a variety of things. I personally know a few sideliners that may not use, some of the treatments that the commercial guys do, but for the most part, it seems they still use essential oils, something different things, and you just want to keep really good documentation of that.
That's correct. The government doesn't tell you what to use. It just tells you that you need to keep your mite levels in a tolerance acceptable by the government.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's walk through a simple program here. Let's say you got 1,000 hives, and I'm just using 1,000 because it makes the math easier. And that's what you started with or ended with in the summer. Let's say you start with 500. Through the course of spring, you double your hives. You're up to 1,000 now. Okay, and you've recorded that with the office, and they know that in July you had 1,000 hives. And then let's say by fall you're back down to 500. Okay, so you go in and you explain that you've lost 500 hives and when you lost them, and then they apply the 24.2% loss rate currently to the 1,000 hives, and they say that you were going to lose 242 hives anyway. Okay, that's normal losses. So you take that 500 you lost, subtract 242, you got 258, and then you would be paid realistically on 258 hives, assuming, of course, you provided all the documentation and support paperwork. Is that a good, fair summary?
It's basically correct. It kind of gets a little more complicated than that because the government in 2024, now some of this could change with the protest against the DEI, but the government also says that certain beekeepers qualify for 75% of the revenue generated, and other beekeepers qualify for 90%. So there's a variance in that number as to what you qualify. I can explain it to you briefly. So if you are a new beekeeper, less than 10 years old, you would qualify for 90% for the first 10 years.
90% of that $129?
Pardon me?
90% of that $129?
Correct. Correct. On the viable losses above the 24.2%. The government also has a socially disadvantaged list that says if you meet one of these conditions, you would get 90%. So you got a beekeeper that's less than 10 years old, you have a woman-owned business, then you have socially disadvantaged, which ranges, and I don't have it in front of me, but I'm going to tell you it ranges anything from African American, Hispanic, Island Pacifica, Native American, Hawaiian. I forget. There's several things there that you have, and I don't have it in front of me. I wish I did because I don't want to misquote it. But if you're any of those, then you would qualify for 90%. Everybody else would qualify for 75%. There is some protest against that, and it could be done away with in 2025 and or significantly changed. I don't know that for a fact yet.
Okay. So you're saying of the, you said it was $129 for this year, if I'm not mistaken.
In 2024, yes.
So of those 258 losses, you're only going to get 100 and what? I guess it'd be $96 for each of those losses then, instead of the 129, correct?
Yeah, it's somewhere around $100 once you take that. And I'll take it a step further and tell you, and I haven't quite figured out the exact percentage, but in their infinite wisdom, the government's going to charge you a 5.7% fee to handle all this paperwork. And it's a long, drawn-out decimal, so I don't have a specific.
5.7 summarizes it. It's like 5.633973.
Yeah, it's like that.
It just goes on and on.
Hey, that 24.2 has got me baffled. How do you lose 0.2% of a hive?
Yeah. Well, and here's the good thing. In 2023, that number was 24.5%. And so it went down to 24.2, so no one complained. But if you go back as far, it was 24%. And I'm going by memory, so please don't throw rocks at me if I'm missing some of these numbers by a little bit. If you go back 4 or 5 years, it was actually down to 18%, which is a significant difference to the beekeeper. And so we're being told, and we're hopeful that if this number goes south of 24.2, it gets closer to, once again, we're hopeful it gets closer to the 15 or 18%. And just personally, as a beekeeper, I believe that's a more realistic number of normal mortality than 24.2.
Well, that's an interesting thought process. So as I understand it from credible sources, very credible sources, it is up for the Farm Bill, and at the next approval of the Farm Bill, it will be set at 16%. That's the number that I've been told, and I've got that from some good sources.
I hope you're correct.
Well, there's a lot of people out there totally against the program. I get that. And then when you say you're going to lower the threshold, I get that also. But also understand that when we talk about colony collapse, they're basically just buying you new bees. When you figure you're only going to get $100 pop out of these to try to get back, it's just a chance to get back to a position where you can function as a farm again. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No. No, it's designed to be a compensation to finance the beekeeper to keep his colony population up and not just continue. Don't have the resources to rebuild what you have, and then our bees just go down and down and down. You know, and it's very complicated. And 16% sounds like a good number. Keep in mind, in 2024, after everything was run through the Farm Bill, the Appropriations Committee recommended 15% and $140. And then when the legislature votes it in as law, at the end of the day, it comes up to 24.2 and 129. So the Appropriations Committee each year continually appears to be hounding legislature to drop this mortality rate. And I'm like you, Charles, we're being told this is the year that it's going to happen. And we're hopeful. If I haven't heard the 16, I've heard all kind of numbers. I have heard 16. I've heard 15. I've heard 18. I've heard 20. I've heard all kind of stuff. And
I actually saw it in writing. No, still got to get passed yet. So
yep. And I hope you're correct. That would be a giant step in the right direction.
So again, for everybody out there, you can sign up for this on your own at your local FSA office. You can get some guidance from your FSA, but then Doug and Logan, you guys run an operation, and I understand there's one other operation out there also that can actually help you get through this system, correct?
That's correct. I don't know much about the other operation. The little bit of research I did, they were more inclined to help the beekeeper collect monies that were past due to them. And I don't know. I don't research those people. I don't know a lot about them.
Not a problem. I'm just letting people know there's
Yep, there is. There is. I don't know much about them. I think it's a very good thing to have people like that. Our program, our philosophy is a little different. We're trying to help the beekeepers understand that even with colony collapse disorder, that we can help take your operation, keep your bee colony populations up, and still generate some revenue to rebuild that through the government. It's not completely about just dead out losses. The government lays out some stipulations about how you can rebuild these hives, what all the true symptoms are. We have a list of symptoms that are directed by the government for colony collapse. So we kind of try and take it a step further in that direction.
The other thing for me that's particularly interesting, I know some people who got into the ELAP program a few years back. A good friend of mine who was captain in the Army for a long time. He got into the program for a small number of losses. He only ran 400 or 500 hives, and his local FSA agent was, shall we say, adversarial. They didn't want to pay out a claim. So what you do is you file the paperwork, and then it goes through a review board at the county level. I know several guys who are actually on county review boards. They look at it, and they either approve or deny it. If they deny it, then it gets kicked up to a state level and then a federal level. And I know a couple of people who have been denied and then had to go back and refile. One of them in particular, my friend Don, he spent 3 years battling this. Whereas I know other people who have gone in hat in hand, paperwork in hand, and been able to file and receive a check in 60, 90 days and get squared away pretty quick. So there's quite a variety of FSA agents out there. Most of the time as a beekeeper, when you walk in and say, I want to file as a farm entity and file for ELAP, most of them are going to look at you and go, I have no idea what you're talking about. So.
Now, is there anything else for loss of honey? Are there any other programs? Because I thought I heard that there was one. They don't pay a ton.
Yes.
I think you're referring to the NAP program. I don't participate in it. I'm not very familiar with it. Doug might be.
Yeah, it once again, it's complicated. We filed one time, and I got to tell you, it was a lot of sugar for the dime we got. It really is. And so you have to have very good records of what your honey production was for 2 to 3 years prior to the claim. then they're going to say that before you ever qualify in NAP, you have to have had less than 50% production rate than you had in the past 2 previous years. And then I think their fair market value for a pound of honey right now is 60 something cents. Yes. So it all came down to it. Now, with the NAP program, it is a crop insurance. And it's how much do you want to pay on your premium? It's a lot like health insurance. So if you have health insurance and you want a $7,000 deductible, you're probably going to get your insurance quite a bit cheaper than if you want a $1,000 deductible. With NAP, there's also what they call buy-ups. So you can buy up in the program and actually receive more money, but you have to do it each year long before you realize that there is going to be a reduction in your honey crop. Some people do it, some people don't. My one experience with it is it doesn't pay a whole lot, and it's just, I've never done the buy up, so I can't say a lot about it.
Doug, you also do rainfall insurance too, right?
Say that again, sir?
You cover rainfall insurance also?
Yes,
I'm sorry,
Doug is a rainfall insurance client of mine, actually.
Yes,
sir.
Yes.
We can let Logan talk.
Yeah. He's the rainfall guy.
Well, let me cover one more thing on the ELAP program here, and then we should probably talk about the rainfall insurance too while we got everybody. So if you're opening your hives for spring here and you notice losses, you've never filed for ELAP before, you can, if you can show what you had going into January, document your numbers, and you can do that through a state inspection program. You can do it through rentals you did last year. There's a lot of different varieties of ways to verify what you had before. It's up to your individual FSA officer. And then they'll assign you a farm number at that point. And then for the rest of the year, you keep track every month of what you gain or lose. And then at the end of the year, anything above 24, or maybe if we're lucky, 16%, would be considered a loss. So it's not too late to get in for your losses for this year, but you need to get moving. You need to start getting your stuff together.
That's correct.
And,
absolutely.
And if you
so I just want to make sure
you call Doug.
Go ahead. I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So you're saying it doesn't kick in until a 24, well, for last year, it was a 24% loss. So does that mean they don't start paying out per hive, or you guys are also talking about you're only getting a certain percentage of that $129 a hive? Are you saying that percentage comes out of the per hive price?
So as Charles was saying earlier, and he gave a very good illustration, we'll use 1,000 hives, for example. If your certified number is 1,000 hives, the first 24.2 losses, so 241 losses, basically, you won't generate any money. But everything after that, you will get. Yeah. So it's not 24.2% less of the money generated. They call those normal mortality. So till you lose that amount, then you wouldn't start generating any money. But done correctly, the program generates quite a bit of money if you can file every 30 days.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. And one more question too, just kind of like a personal question for me, because I just registered for FSA and got all of that set up. My officer was telling me that when I purchase hives, it doesn't count. How does that work in your numbers? If you buy hives, how does that affect your total numbers and splits you make off them and stuff like that?
So in our program with GroundShaker Consulting, all bees have to be recorded. So if you buy or sell bees, they can be added to your number of colonies, but you have to have proof of purchase, basically. It's no different than making splits. Those splits add to your colony number. So would the purchase of bees. But you have to have recorded it at that point, then it kicks in. But also if you're selling bees, you have to remember those have to be recognized also, because you're going to lose that many colonies, but those are not losses to any emergency disaster relief program, you simply sold those. So it had good record keeping, and that's where we really kick in. We emphasize documentation is one of the most important things that's going to happen in this program. And so we recommend very good documentation. If you purchase bees, they need to be recorded that they were purchased, and there needs to be some type of purchase agreement. I don't think the government needs to know what you paid for them. And the same thing if bees are sold. That would be a number that would go down in your colony count. Not a loss to CCD, but it has to be recorded correctly. Or at the end of the day, that's another reason that the government can use to deny a claim and saying you didn't follow this documentation correctly. You just added 408 hives, which I bought a truckload of hives. Well, where's the proof? So forth and so on.
Yeah. Anything you purchase absolutely goes onto your total.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, maybe that's just the lack of education that we were talking about.
Yep. Absolutely.
Most of the FSA agents I've talked to, you go back and forth, they just don't understand the business. They're in the business of corn and beans in my area anyway. So anything corn and bean related, they're the experts. But when it comes to bees, you really got to be able to bring them up to speed. The other thing that's real nice is if they've got somebody like Doug or other FSA agents in other counties that they can talk to. So if you've got a friend who's been getting ELAP successfully and your FSA agent in your county is clueless, get your friend's FSA phone number and have your agent call them and let them talk amongst themselves. That seems to be real helpful sometimes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, Logan, tell us about Rainfall Insurance, the other big program for beekeepers.
Okay, so I'll give the shorter version. I'll try to do my best to be thorough, though. So basically, Rainfall Insurance, what we're doing is we're taking your total number of colonies that you're going to reach in the year. So if you average about 1,000, but you might get up to 1,100, get down to 800, you just use that 1,000 number because you're gonna at least hit 1,000. With that, we're gonna take all your locations and we're gonna insure 2-month intervals at a time in different locations. So California, January, February is a big one because everybody's there. But the government also has said you can insure the location even when you don't have bees there because you need the moisture all year round to really thrive when you are there. So we insure 2 months at a time. And if it's less than the 75 or 76 year average that NOAA Weather Stations has been keeping track of the weather, if the moisture level is below that average, you get paid out a benefit. So for every colony, you get a certain amount of coverage. And as it rains, the closer it gets to the average, your benefit comes down. Kind of the helpful tool in this program, this is through the RMA, so there is a little bit of risk. When I talk about FSA, I always say the F is for free, RMA, the R is for risk. So you have a premium, but the helpful part about that, the premium's not due till October 1st of the year you're insuring. So as you generate benefits, that's first going to go towards paying off your premium. And once that is exhausted, the benefits throughout the rest of the year come straight to the beekeeper. And that's kind of my summary on it. Do you have any questions, Charles?
Questions. Oh, that's a tricky one. So the premium, so everybody understands, the premium isn't paid until after the deadline, and you basically, if you got plenty of rain, then you would have to pay the premium in, and if you were short, then you would probably get a check back. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir, but it's not an all or nothing deal. A wet year could still consist of a few dry months where you may have generated benefits. So you could owe 10% of your premium, you could owe 50%. If you were completely underwater all year, well, then you would owe the whole premium.
And the premiums, can you give us any rough idea or tell us a little bit about how that's calculated? Because I know it's a big variable.
Yeah, I knew that question was coming, and I was trying to think of the answer. I don't know how it's calculated, to be honest. It has to do with the normal moisture levels and the average rainfall there. So California, the Central Valley, is typically a very dry place. So those grids there, I believe, average 28, 29, even $30 a colony. You get into the Midwest, say Wisconsin for an example, I think they might be like $11 a colony. They're prone to get more moisture, so it brings the premium value down. But I don't know the exact calculation. I'm going to find that out.
Okay, then you talk about premiums per hive there. Then can you talk a little bit about how the payout works then, or the ratio? As I understand it, the ratio is the easier way to understand it.
Yeah. So for instance, I just know California really well because pretty much every policy I have touches California at some point. So they're about $30 a hive on the premium. And I want to say that probably gets you, and don't quote me on this is a guess, but maybe about $130 to $150 worth of coverage for that $30 that you're spending.
Okay, so you spend $30 to cover your rainfall, and you could get back a premium if they're short, anywhere from $30 to $125.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Probably around $130 for every. So every colony, it costs you $30, and if it doesn't rain a drop during the 2-month interval, you could generate probably about $130 or $140 off of that.
And that's as I understand it, you can look up the typical payout numbers when somebody calls you, correct?
Absolutely. So, I'm with CKP Insurance, or Beekeeping Insurance Services, on the bee side of things, and our software calculates all of that. It's also public information on how that's calculated. If you go on a farm service agency website, you can look into the rainfall index. That's what the program is called. And there's all these graphs and grids and charts. I'm just very fortunate that our company created a software to make that a little simpler. So when I do a quote for say a new client, they call me. The first thing I'm going to ask is for them to send me all their locations and how many hives they're running. And then I'm going to divide them up throughout the locations depending on the historical weather data. And it'll tell me exactly what your premium is, and then year to year what you would have generated in revenue off the rainfall.
Yeah, and understand that for a lot of people, it is a revenue. There is pretty good odds you're going to be short in some areas, and then other areas of the country, it's a wash at best. I know that's one of the reasons I've never got involved with the rainfall is the guys, when they run my areas, the numbers come back, the payout just isn't worth it.
Yes, and there is definitely certain areas I've had people inquire, and I'm like, this just isn't a good fit for your operation. Luckily in the bees, I do it for cattle as well, but on the bee side of things, we all move around. We have a lot more locations to choose from. Versus like on the cattle side of things, they got one pasture or multiple pastures near each other, but they basically got one county to look at the weather data and to insure.
Yeah, one of the questions is, do you have to have a minimum of 125 colonies for rainfall insurance? Is that correct?
No, I believe they went away with that. I want to say the number is maybe 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Changes. Yeah, for me, it's not a program I've ever got involved with. I've had a lot of people ask, and we've done the numbers, but I live in an area that rainfall is just usually not a problem. And if it went over, I'd be in a heartbeat.
I was about to say that if it was for the other way around where we get too much rain.
I really wish it was, because realistically, too much rain for a beekeeper is worse than too little. With cattle, you get a little too much rain, the grass continues to grow. With us, it keeps washing out the pollen and washing down the nectar. And it's really easy to have a pollen and nectar flow wiped out by a week of storms.
Yep.
That
One
happened to
thing
us last year.
one statistic I do have that's kind of interesting, from all of our clients, at least within our company, you're going to average 7 out of 10 years, and this is nationwide. 7 out of 10 years, you're going to generate benefit for yourself. 2 out of 10, you're most likely going to pay something in, and 1 year is going to be basically a wash, real close, whether you make a couple bucks or lose a couple bucks, but real close to breaking even, if you will.
Well, it's kind of key to understand that they've set this program up basically intentionally to add some assistance to guys who are doing this every day. If it wasn't set up that way, if they didn't intend it that way, then it'd be 50-50 at best.
Yep. Well, and that's there's a common misconception here too that the beekeepers are being subsidized. In a way, they are, I guess, but really the insurance company is being subsidized. It's still sold through private insurance, and then the government is picking up 51% of the premium to the insurance company.
Well, you said something there that's interesting, Logan. One of the things, there's a lot of discussion about ELAP and rainfall insurance being, handouts, give me all that stuff. And I can see that point. I definitely can. Okay. There is money coming from the government here, but there is some huge advantages here too. By keeping the livestock community, which is not just us, we're only about 10% of this entire program at best. The vast majority of this is for cattle, fish, and everything else. So we're just a little bit on the edge, but by helping subsidize this, they keep beekeepers whole, and we can continue to provide pollination services for the almonds and every other crop that we touch. We keep honey flowing in the United States. So this is part of a program overall that's designed to keep U.S. food costs low. It's not just a government handout. It's a way of controlling cost of food and groceries for everybody. And there's a lot of discussion because there are some really big beekeepers who are taking advantage of this program, and some that aren't. But if you're taking advantage of it, you have an economic advantage over those people who are ignoring the program. Okay?
Yep.
It's a reality we have to address. If you can do it on your own and you don't need help ever, fantastic. But as a commercial beekeeper, I can tell you every once in a while, you're going to get your ass handed to you. That's just the reality of it. And you have to make a strong decision. Am I going to keep doing this, or do I get out? And ELAP is going to help some of those guys make that decision to stay in the business and hopefully clean things up and fix things.
Yep. And what I've always been told, when ELAP came out, or not ELAP, I'm sorry, rain insurance, I want to say it was 2010 or 2011. They started with a program using a satellite imaging. It was called a vegetative index. So they were using satellites to basically see if it was green or not green, and that's how they discovered your payout. And then when they switched it to the rainfall index, and there's been a lot of great benefits added to the program over the years. But I've always been told that the U.S. government has a vital interest in the U.S. food supply, and this is one of their ways of trying to protect it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is about making sure we can continue to provide pollination services for a lot of growers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A real eye-opener to me was early in the stages years ago. There was a guy who worked for the government who was deeply involved. He was a beekeeper, but he worked for the government also. And he approached me one time, and he had done a lot of research on the ELAP program pertaining to colony collapse disorder. And his comment to me was, this guy has since retired, and I talk to him still. But his comment to me was, whoever thinks this is a welfare program needs to understand this. If they do not participate and they do not use this money, the government is not going to put it back in circulation. They're going to simply take this money and give it to another program that will utilize it. And that's when I saw the importance. Why wouldn't the beekeeper take advantage? And I'm just going to put this out there. The Farm Bill covers many things. And his expression to me was that money, and I'm not against, I don't want be political here, that money could actually go into the food stamp program, because the food stamp program is a part of the Farm Bill. And so if you're going to give it to the food stamp program, why wouldn't the beekeeper take advantage of it? Not take advantage in the sense where we misuse it, but take advantage, full advantage of the program to rebuild our bees and help the food industry in that fashion.
Well, I would add one other caveat to that, because there's a lot of small scale and sideliner beekeepers who look at this as a handout. And to answer their question, it is. I see all the time guys complain farmers get $1 million, they get $500,000 here, they get 100,000 here. But then I look at the names and I know these guys. And I realize, the guy that's getting $1 million is also farming 6,000 acres and paying in $5 million a year in taxes. So the reality is, when it gets down to this, if you're getting an ELAP check, okay, great. You're going to pay income taxes on that ELAP check, and you have income from other sources. And it really amounts to a small percentage of what you pay in, maybe getting that back to be able to do something good with it and keep your business going, as opposed to closing it out and being in serious trouble.
Yep, definitely. Well, did you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about? I think you guys wrapped that up really well with anything anybody needs to know about ELAP.
When you get done with this, you might put Doug and Logan's information up on there, so they know how to get
I can do that.
If they have more questions, or you can
Definitely.
email me or Emily, obviously, for questions too.
Yep. So,
actually, before, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say to everybody who was able to listen, hopefully we shared some information that'll be beneficial to the beekeeper in some form or fashion, because we're all in business to make money, but I tell you what, it brings us a lot of pleasure, and we help a lot of beekeepers in a lot of different fashions. We're a consulting company. We specialize in the ELAP program, but I can tell you, we got beekeepers that call us up that are looking for anything from medication to advice to sugar to whatever it is. And if we can help, we help. So we're a full consulting company, not just, we specialize in the ELAP program and disaster relief programs, but we help beekeepers. We help a lot of young beekeepers. We get calls. I stay on the phone. Logan stays on the phone. We have some other associates that stay on the phone, and we just get a lot of beekeeping questions, particularly from maybe newcomers and maybe not. And the thing that we have is that we talk to no less than 100 beekeepers a month on a regular basis. And so we're learning all the time too, but what it allows us to do is share information and share ideas. And anybody willing to listen, we find this become very, very beneficial to the beekeeper to do so.
Definitely. I don't know how you have time to do it. That's awesome. We definitely need that in the industry.
Me either.
I did remember there was actually one more thing. There was one more thing I did want to ask about. So I did see a Facebook post about another program possibly being created called ECAP. It was Emergency Commodity Assistance Program. Is that a thing, or is that just something to disregard?
I saw a little bit about it. I don't think it's a program that's instituted or will be used on a regular basis. Many beekeepers this year was able to, and I may pronounce it MASC, M-A-S-C, I believe, which was a specialty crop thing where the government found $2.something billion left off of a program and assisted not just the beekeepers, but other specialty crops. I think just a few were grapes and other things, but honey was one of them. So some of these programs will pop up as money is allowed, but like the MASC, it may be one and done. It may not be one and done, but it may just be the distribution of monies left over, and they use these programs and they get rid of it, and then you don't see it again. So time will tell. I don't know a lot about it, to be honest.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for taking the time to chat about this.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity to clear the air on some things and try to inform some people.
Yeah. Definitely. I hope it helped.
Well, thanks for having us. And again, if anyone wants to contact us on any kinds of questions, we're here to help everybody. So.
Definitely. All right.
Thanks.
See you guys later.
All right.
Thank you.